We're going to call this meeting to order. My name is Joe McGiverin. I'm chairman of the Holyoke City Council Subcommittee for Finance. To my right is Mike Sullivan, City Councilor at Large. To my left is the tall man, Peter Tallman, City Councilor at Large. We expect Councilor McGee and Councilor Leahy to be joining us shortly. We do have an aggressive agenda, but a lot of this came in the August midsummer meeting, and we want to get as much of it ready for a final vote in September. The first item on the agenda is a secondhand license application of Israelis Rivera of 171 High Street. I don't believe Ms. Rivera is here. Chair will entertain a motion to take off the table for discussion.
Motion to take
off.
off.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We did make, our administrative assistant made several attempts to contact her with no response. I would suggest we table it and we'll make a more formal attempt with a letter and set it up for the next meeting unless she shows up later tonight.
Motion to table.
Motion to table. There's no discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item 2 is the collective bargaining agreement of the Holyoke Deputy Chiefs Association. Item 2 also goes along with item number 4, which is an appropriation, a transfer from firefighters, 11,000 line item, $11,115.47 into the Deputy Chief's line item. I would ask for a motion to accept and receive both and take them off the table for discussion.
Motion to receive items 2 and 4 together and take off the table for discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Anyone who is here to speak for the Deputy Chief's contract? Hey, you want to come in? Yeah, Jeff, come on. It's our president and member of the committee, Councilor McGee, has joined us. Gentlemen, we know everybody, but will you just state your name for the record?
I'm Mark Fortin. I'm the president of the Deputy Fire Chiefs Association.
Thanks, Mark.
Jeff Preskopowski. I'm a member of the Deputy Chiefs Firefighters Association.
So I just want to make sure I could pronounce Preskopowski right, or, I would not live it down, Jeff, right?
You said it perfect.
Would anybody like to lead us through the significance in the contract changes, impacts, particularly impacts on dollars, and then we can go into questions and answers.
I'm not exactly sure. What are you looking for? What kind of information?
Mark, just you negotiated with the city.
Correct.
Okay, did you negotiate with the mayor, with the law department?
Correct.
Okay.
With the solicitor's
and
office.
if you could just highlight we have a copy of the contract in front of us.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't because I took the wrong bag this afternoon.
No problem.
So I think not the cover page, but the second page there is pretty much cut and dry, just spells it out pretty easily for you, all the different changes that we've made from the contract that we used to have, which was the same as the local 1693's contract. So we started with the 1693's contract, and then we just took that and instead of rewriting a whole brand new contract, we went with that contract and we just made some changes with it. And we bargained with the solicitor's office for these changes spelled forth on this one page here.
Mark, the percentages, I'll just read them for the record. The contract goes back to 2016, but it's very difficult to go retroactive that far back. So it's July 1st, 2017, 1.5%. That would be retroactive. July 1st, 2018, another 1.5%. I'm sorry, January 2018, 1.5%. July 2018, 1.5%. And then in January 2019, 1%.
Well, that July 1st was also 1%, right?
I read it wrong. And the retroactive, I believe, Bellamy, the appropriation before us is for the retroactive for 2017 and 18? I'm not. That's possible. I have the budget here. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause no, I'm not sure exactly how much that money is. July 1st and January 1st, July 1st, 17, January 1st, 18. All that, of course, is going to be the retro. We're already, a little bit into the July 1st, 2018 portion of it.
I'll reword this. So this and the amounts in the budget is enough to cover the retros and go forward with the increases for the rest of the year.
I see Jeff nodding to my right, so he actually would be probably better on the numbers than I am.
Jeff?
Yes, the money being transferred tonight would cover the retroactive pay.
And is there a connection to the firefighters' contract if they get increases?
There is. Right under the wage portion, there is a reopener clause right there.
Okay. Mark, can you explain your understanding of how reopening would work?
So if 1693, let's just say, got a 3% raise on July 1st, 2018, then we would go back and we would renegotiate.
Okay, so it would not be automatic.
It's not automatic. It would reopen the contract, and then we would renegotiate at that point.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any other questions? Councilor Bacon?
So if the contract was reopened at that point, would it be reopened for all areas of the contract or just the money?
I believe it would just be for the monetary issues. If there was any monetary issue, also the increases in wages, and also for the longevity, that any monetary values.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Would you have any questions for us?
I do not.
We have a lot of speed readers up here, though. They've only had the contract for 2 months, but, it's like... If there's no other questions or other discussion, will the chair entertain a motion? What we would actually be asking the city council to vote on would be the appropriation, which would be for, as stated, the retro part of the contract, or a portion of the retro part of the contract, by which, once we make the appropriation, that would ratify the contract, the entire contract, for the length of the contract. It's our only shot. We cannot negotiate, we cannot renegotiate. We do have a right to understand what's in the contract and future impacts on the budget, but we cannot negotiate or renegotiate any of the items. We can vote it up or down. A yes vote by the city council in favor would ratify the contract with the appropriation transfer, and a no vote would null and void the contract, and it would have to go back for renegotiation or arbitration. Councilor Tallman.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the transfer from the firefighters fund, $11,115.47, to the deputy chief's line item, $11,115.47.
Second.
Motion made and second to recommend to the city council that the appropriation be adopted, thus ratifying the deputy chief's contract as written in and before us. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 4-0. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
We have item number 3, which is also a collective bargaining agreement with UCFW. It's the local 1459 for the Council on Aging. Entertain a motion to take off the table.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anybody here representing the local 1459? Anybody coming in? Okay. We might do this real quick. Bellamy, if I could ask you a question. We don't have any appropriation in front of us. I'm not sure if it's in the budget. I'm not sure where it is. But is that something that's coming down the road? Nah.
No, I don't think it. It's up top,
I
isn't
think it's
it?
on the mic.
top.
It's on the mic somewhere. Underneath, yeah.
The answer is, yeah, the transfer was submitted to the city clerk today for the agenda to put on the council's agenda next week. The amount of the transfer is approximately $4,288.
Okay.
And it's
Thank-
all being funded from within the Council on Aging. They're moving money around in their own budget to pay for this. So they're not asking for additional funds from anywhere else.
Okay. But I take it you cannot answer our questions as far as the contract goes.
No, I can't. I thought our lawyers were going to be here to do that
We
tonight,
thought
but-
so too. Both the law department was invited and the representatives from the union were notified of the meeting. So make a motion to table. If they come in later this evening, we'll get to it.
Second.
If not, we'll put it on the next agenda and explain to the city council when it comes in. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Item number 5 is introduced by myself. It's an order in the sum of $2.5 million to be appropriated by the cost and purchase, for the cost and purchase of 2 aerial ladder trucks for the City of Holyoke Fire Department and the payment of all costs incidental related hereto. To meet the appropriation, the treasurer will be approved, with approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow this amount under pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7.1 of the general laws or pursuant to any other enabling authority and to issue bonds or notes of the city therefore, that the mayor be authorized to contract for the expended state aid available for the project and that the mayor be authorized to take any necessary action to carry out this project. Motion to receive, take off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Chief, would you like to come in? Is there anyone else you'd like to bring in? Okay. Jeff got kind of tired tonight with all that talking, you know? Thank you, Chief, and I thank you for the email, which I told you I read while I was sitting on the beach up in New Hampshire last week, and it was good news, but if everybody hasn't heard, I'm going to let you talk about it this evening. But if you have updated the committee and the council recently and numerous times on the plight of our fleet, and especially of ladder trucks. So if you want to just start there and recap that, and then maybe go into the funding source here and the good news.
Correct. Before I get into all the good news, I'll give you a quick overview of our fleet at this time. Our reserve truck, Truck 3, is completely out of service at this time. We have no reserve ladder truck. We get assistance from communities around us, East Hampton, Chicopee, Westfield. As for our frontline apparatus, our 2 ladder trucks, one is a 2000, which makes it 18 years old and past its NFPA lifespan of 15 years frontline service. And our other ladder truck is Truck 1, which is a 2002, which is 16 years, and that is past its 15-year recommended lifespan as a frontline service or frontline piece of apparatus. So the
I'm
goal,
sorry, what year was that?
NFPA.
No, what year was
2002.
2? Okay, sorry.
It's 16 years old. NFPA recommends after 15 years, frontline apparatus go into reserve status. So the plan is, and I touched upon it before, is to purchase 2 new ladder trucks to replace the 2 frontline apparatus. Once those are in service as frontline, we'll take Truck 1, which is a 2002, that's 16 years old, and use that as a reserve piece. The other 2, Truck 2 and Truck 3, will be traded in. I'm not sure what the trade-in value for either of them will be, but it's yet to be determined. So that's currently where we are with our fleet. We have been in talks with manufacturers about supplying 2 ladder trucks. One of the key problems we have in our city is the underpasses, which are low, 11-foot 2-inch. Most manufacturers don't get down to that point, so these have to be specially made so they go underneath the underpass. Because the last thing we want to do is buy $1 million ladder truck and have it not fit under an underpass. So that's one of the problems we're running into now. We have some pricing for them, and which is where it comes into the $2.5 million bond, which is why we're here tonight. We're looking to get $2.5 million to purchase 2 new ladder trucks and 2 new command vehicles. The good news now is that we can reduce that amount due to the fact that we've recently just received an Assistance to Firefighters grant for $975,000 but there is a 10% match, and we can go over the math in a minute, trust me, I went through this. There's a 10% match to that, which brings the total down to $886,364 of federal funds directly to the city of Holyoke for the purchase of a ladder truck. So in essence, we can drop that bond from 2.5 to 1.6. Now, when I say the math, because to me, 975,000, 10% of that is 97,500. Don't worry, Jeff, I remember this. The way they come up with their 10%, it's called congressional math. That's the wording I got today for it. They take the total cost and they divide that by 1.10, and that is a 10%. So really, it's to our plus. We actually gained some money on that whole deal. We ended up getting $9,000 extra out of it. Trust me, I racked my brain on that. So I guess for the good news, we don't need 2.5, but we still need 1.6. I'm hoping that that's an easier pill to swallow for the city. I understand the financial conditions and constraints in the city, but we are at an end now to our fire apparatus, our ladder trucks. Truck 2 is constantly in the shop. Truck 1 is fair, but truck 2 is in poor condition, and truck 3 is completely out of service. It takes about 360 days to build a ladder truck. So the sooner we get the project going, the sooner we can get the ladder truck here. And I know during the budget review, we were going over all the numbers, and I'd like to thank Councilor McGiverin, because he didn't cut our budget for our maintenance, because we've already dug into that for probably $10,000, $12,000 already this year. And we fully expect to have that spent out by the end of the fiscal year due to the condition of truck 2. So I leave it to the council if you have any
Chief,
questions.
could you just go revisit the 2 command vehicles and explain to everybody what they are and what they do?
The 2 command vehicles, one is a 2004 Ford Expedition with over 100,000 miles. That is in poor condition. That is car number 20, and that is my vehicle. Yes, I have the worst vehicle. And the next one is car 22, which is a deputy chief's command vehicle, and that's a 2006 Ford Expedition, and that is running now about 85,000 miles, and that's in poor condition as well. All the vehicles that I'm talking about tonight are the ones that we're spending a lot of money maintaining our fleet with. So once these get replaced and we get our EVT in position, I'm feeling pretty good with the future of the fire department's fleet.
And besides the ladders that you just outlined for us now, is I lost the name of it. The pumper with the ladder on it?
The Quint?
The Quint, is that in service at all?
The Quint is still in service, and that's going to, down the road, that's the next piece that's going to need to be replaced. The Quint is 2005, so we're getting close to that, but you're looking at, 2 or 3 years out for that. That's in fair condition currently. Yeah, it's supposed to go in cycles. We should have capital outlay to plan these things out ahead, but I understand.
Councilor McGee?
How much are the Quints?
The Quint would probably be about another $1 million. You're looking at probably 900 to 1.1.
And if we package the Quint with ladder trucks, so they come from the same area, they come from the same builder,
They could.
they give a discount for multiples?
Yes, they all, actually, that's a great question, Counselor, is they always, if you buy more than one, they give you a better deal. And for us, when we purchase 2 ladder trucks from the same vendor, they're going to give us a ladder truck to use until ours come in. So that's going to help us keep a ladder truck in the city.
I guess my question is, if it's for 2.5 and we got roughly 886 and the quint's roughly 900,000, I mean, it's all, estimates. If you throw in 3 trucks, would that roughly be about 2.5? Would they give us that deal to give us 3 trucks?
I could probably make that work. I could talk to the vendors. I can't give you any guarantees, but
No, I know, but I think that's something to look at.
I definitely think that's a great idea.
Because, to be clear, before us is a request for 2.5. We as a council cannot strike it down to 1.6, 1.7, wherever that number is.
Right.
So we'd have to go back and get a new request from bond council or from the auditor and treasurer to redraft it. Well, knowing that we're getting 886, almost 900,000, you get 3 apparatus, you just leave the bond the way it is.
I'm not opposed to
I
that.
mean, you're talking three apparatus that are, as we are, I mean, you and I have been talking about these things for years.
Yes.
It's, do we do just 2? Then we have to come back, it's gonna cost us more just to get 1.
I mean, the more you go into the future, the higher the cost of the vehicle is going to be as well. I mean, you're looking at a minimum of 3% added on every year going forward.
I think that would be key for a vote on Wednesday now, we move to Wednesday.
Wednesday.
To have that information to see if we just go with the 2.5 and see what the price is for 3.
That sounds great. I can reach out to the vendor tomorrow and see what they can do for us. I can let you know either way. I can send an email or give you a phone call.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good points. The option we may have, Bellamy, but maybe this will be put aside for the moment, is if the auditor with the mayor's signature was to put the new number in front of us for next week, it's possible that we could take this discussion and vote on a new number. But that's if we can get through this evening. Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, thanks, Chief, for coming down, and I think that's important you stated about the equipment, how it's wearing down and how the cost is increasing with the, repairs. And I think that's a great idea what my colleague, Mr. McGee, stated about that. Because of the cost going forward, we're going to need it within probably 2 or 3 years anyways.
Yes.
And to have that, to back up. And I didn't realize the time frame is just about a year after you order it, which you're looking at probably next September or late September after you get it in. My concern was the grant is stated at a certain period of time you had to use it by. Is it like within a month or something that you have to get the vote?
The grant has to be accepted within 30 days, so that's up to city council, and if we could figure that out tonight, I could come back when city council's in full session and try to get a vote in there to accept it. Once it's accepted, we have a year to spend the money, but if it goes past that year, we can put in amendments. Obviously, if it's in production, they'll let us extend the time out 3 months at a time, so
Right.
we won't lose that.
And of course, the match is something that the city has to have when that's accepted, the 86,000. That has to come from somewhere.
Yes, and that would be part of the bond package. Basically, you're putting in your 10% towards the purchase.
Okay, so that would be in the bond.
Yes.
Okay, that was one of my concerns, because that's, quite a bit of, I don't want to lose the grant, but it's quite a bit of money when the city's in a tough situation with that.
Especially if you're trying to pull it out of free cash.
Right. And you stated the vehicles with the underpasses we have, and I know that's a big concern. When we had these before, is that why the time frame is so long? Because of the special size that they have to make it? They have to basically build them to make it fit underneath the underpasses?
For the engines, we had 3 engines, and that took about a year. It just takes that much time. For ladder trucks, they're a bit higher, so this is what, they have demo trucks, which we've looked at, because if I could get a truck tomorrow to replace something, I would, and you could probably get a lot cheaper. When I say a lot cheaper, maybe 100,000 cheaper. And that's one thing I can look at for a Quint, see? So that's an option, but they're all too high. They won't fit underneath the underpass, under some of our underpasses. So we can look at other options on that and see what we can do, but it's in production when they make that height, and it's hard to make that adjustment after the fact.
After the fact, right. And the trucks, you stated that when you put the order in, that they give you a truck to utilize while you're waiting for the new trucks?
That's correct. The company that we're looking at, if we buy 2 ladder trucks from them, they will give us a truck to use for the year while we're waiting for our trucks to be built.
Right. And you stated the 2 trucks that we have, that are 2000 and 2002, they're over their time, but are they still being, I mean, they're still safe, but those are the ones you have to have repaired often? You're still utilizing those?
We still utilize them, and here's the thing, what happens when truck 2 goes down, we take the quint and we move it over as truck 2, and then we put a reserve pump up where the quint was. So we're kind of moving things around to make sure we keep 2 trucks or 2 ladders in the city at the same time.
Right. And you stated truck 3 is totally out?
Truck 3 is
Not
done, yeah.
Not utilizing. You just keep it that somewhere? Does that go to somewhere?
Well, we're looking to get rid of it or scrap it, but it's going to be part of this grant where it has to be traded in or disposed of, so we'll trade it in. We have to get certification that wherever it goes, it's not ever used as an emergency vehicle, which it wouldn't be able to be anyways, but
Right.
it's basically done. It's at the end of its life at 40 years old.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further discussion? Counselor Sullivan?
Thanks. Chief, on the average, like the ladder truck, how many miles a day does that thing go out on the road?
I would have to do the math. I can tell you that the 2000 ladder truck has about 68,000 miles now. So if you did the math, I think the real issue is on most apparatus is when you leave the station, you start it up, you go, you make hard runs, you come back. One of our real problems that, we are trying to solve, and we have, thanks to the DPW and the city council, is to get our own mechanic who's going to oversee this fleet. Because if a piece of apparatus is maintained properly throughout the years, you can actually extend the lifespan of it a few years, and that's going to save money.
I get that, Chief, and that fits with my rough math here. About 10 miles a day over 20 years would be about 73,000 miles. We're at 68, so we're averaging a little less than 10 miles a day. Do you know what the approximate weight of one of these vehicles is?
I want to say 60,000 pounds.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Shoot from the hip.
Are the drivers required to get a commercial driver's license?
No. It's a exemption in Massachusetts state for firefighters. You have the ability to drive fire apparatus without the license. But they are all trained in-house, and they go to the fire academy, and they have training at the fire academy.
Do any other departments in the state require the operators of these vehicles to have a commercial driver's license?
I couldn't tell you.
I'm just wondering, the amount of maintenance that these are constantly in for repair and beating on this would somehow indicate to me that we have some drivers that just need some additional training. For a trash truck driver, a garbage truck driver in Holyoke is required to have a commercial driver's license. Somebody driving a 60,000-pound vehicle to be out there without a commercial driver's license, without that training, and just having in-house training. There's schools. There's a school right in Chicopee. Would this cause contract problems or something? Tell me what I'm stepping into here. Tell me what I'm stepping into.
I don't think we should get into contract stuff, but
I'm just asking for
I'm
the
going
cause.
to say that we have 4 groups, A, B, C, and D, and they would all have to be trained. You're looking at 120 firefighters. If I don't know how the city's going to swing that bill. That's a lot of driving.
Well, as I understand it, the city doesn't swing the bill for a trash truck driver. You got to have a commercial driver's license, or you can't drive a 60,000-pound vehicle. And, you know, to be properly trained and operating in one of these might reduce the cost of the annual maintenance that we're doing and the life expectancy. To say that something is 18 years old, diesel engines with only 68,000 miles on it, indicates some pretty hard driving.
It's fire apparatus, it's responding.
A trash truck is a pretty hard driving truck also, if you've seen
Yeah.
these running around the city. And they put on a lot more than 10 miles a day.
I don't know if the DPW has an exemption for drivers, apparently not, but there is one in the state of Massachusetts for fire apparatus.
Okay. It just seems to me if we're that we're putting a driver without a commercial driver's license behind a $1 million vehicle, it seems something we might want to look at in the future, that's all.
Well, when we get new vehicles, it's not like they come in and then we just say, hey, you're the driver. The company comes in, they do training, they drive around with the firefighters and show them how everything operates. So it's not just you jump in there and hit the gas pedal and go.
No, I get that. I get that part. There's a lot of specialized equipment, all right? But, you know, there's also a thing called a pitman arm. I bet you 90% of the people don't know what a pitman arm is, and they don't know where their brake cans are and the rest that goes along with it, that are intrinsic on every piece of heavy equipment vehicle, regardless of whether it's a tractor trailer, you know, delivering for Home Depot or any others that you see out on the highway. So,
Right.
okay.
I appreciate Counselor Sullivan's concern and remarks, Chief, and maybe you can, there's never enough training as far as I'm concerned for anything. But I do believe a CDL license would be a work change and would be a collective bargaining issue because unfortunately CDL licenses in this state also add personal liabilities to those who hold them, far greater than those of us who have a regular license, which I think is where it would come into collective bargaining. However, the more training, the better. I wasn't going to tell this story tonight, Chief, but it was 1986, and I won't mention the name of the retired training officer, Mr. Gabala, who was training a couple of new guys on a ladder truck, and my wife and I were living up on Beach Street on a two-family on the second floor when I heard a bang. And when I came out on the porch, I was looking into the ladder, into the guy in the tiller, who didn't quite make the turn on Suffolk Street. But they were able to get it off my lawn, no damage to the steps, a little damage to my sister's car, but that was taken care of by insurance, and the training lesson went on. And that person had a good career, I can tell you, both being the tiller and eventually the driver of the ladder truck. But you don't always have good training officers like Paul Gabala.
Right.
I shouldn't say that. You probably do have a good training officer now.
He's
but
special.
He was probably the one that we all looked up to.
Yeah.
Is there any other discussion?
Well, I mean, if I can add something to Councilor Sullivan, I'm not sure if you knew, New England Tractor Trailer recently moved into the city, and they're operating up at the Holyoke Mall in the parking lot back there. I got an email from them last week, so this might help you out. They're offering to give free Class B training to every firefighter in the Holyoke Fire Department. All they would have to do is pay for the license and whatnot. So I'm putting a package together now to put it out to the department, so you guys are getting it firsthand. And that'll give them an opportunity. That would be training on their own time, so they can go do it to get their own Class B license. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? The chair is just going to Bellamy, please come forward.
You're going to give me a 2.5, Bellamy?
Sure. We've had Christmas, now we
Yeah.
have the Grinch. You've talked about the benefits of the
Can't hear
ladder
you.
trucks.
Is it
and
on?
I think, and that's,
There you
but I think we also have to talk about what the city can afford, looking at the affordability. So I'm looking at the debt schedule for the city over the next 3 years. In 2017, our total debt burden was 4.2 million. In 2018, it went down to 3.9 million because we had some debt roll off. In 2019, it's gone back to 4.2 million because of a number of projects that you approved in 2017. To wit, Roberts Field, more money for the Dean Science Lab, the parking garage, the Essex House, school boilers, public safety radio, and some outdoor recreational facilities. So at the moment in 2019, our budget for debt service is 4.2 million. Unfortunately, in 2020, it's going up substantially because of projects you have already approved, to wit, DPW vehicles, the Pouillat Pool, accelerated school repair, feasibility study for new schools, tennis courts, and the Valley Arena. Now, this debt, we're just going to market with this debt in September, but I estimate that, worst case, our debt burden would go up $500,000 next year from 4.2 million to 4.7 million before we start talking about fire trucks or otherwise. So I think you need to have that as background. Now, I have a suggestion for how to get the fire trucks, because I believe we need them desperately, and that is to cancel some of the projects you've already approved. For example, do we need the luxury of a swimming pool as opposed to the necessity of ladder trucks? I would cancel the swimming pool project. That's $1.5 million, of which we've only spent maybe $15,000 so far. Same is true of Valley Arena Park. Do we need another park for which we've spent very little so far? I would take those two projects and roll them into fire trucks so that we don't have to increase our debt burden. Because I don't know where we're going to get the additional revenue to pay for this. So I'm very fearful of going above that 4.7 million. And I hope it'll be a little bit less, because the one project in here I'm not so sure of is the accelerated repair for the schools and exactly when that money kicks in. So I'm just asking you to consider that very carefully, what we can afford as the backdrop to what we need. And I think, I do think we need the fire ladder trucks.
Bellamy, I appreciate that. Usually I would call the treasurer and get the numbers, or you before our meeting next week, and you make good points, very good points. I would point out, though, that even though the city council approved these bondings and are looking to approve the bonding for, I agree with you 100% that these ladder trucks are probably, of all the projects, the top priority. Our chief financial officer has the burden of deciding which ones to go forward on. So that would be up to the mayor to choose not to do the pool, the mayor to choose not to do certain things. He's not forced, along with the treasurer, to do any of this when it comes to connecting it to the current budget. The debt burden is part of the current budget, and, we try to time these things, and we always try to ask these questions and understand them. The priorities here, though, I agree, would be the ladder trucks first. But we pay the mayor the big bucks to make those decisions. Councilor McGee.
I know who to lobby. Thank you.
Just, Bellamy, since you're up there, just a question is, you said the pool was 1.5.
Roughly,
Was
yeah.
that with or without the grant?
Well, as I understand, it started out, it was 2 million and the grant was going to be 500,000 and it got us down to 1.5, but then we lost the grant or something. I don't know, the whole thing's very
Well, we're told the
confusing to
grant
me.
would come back, so it's
So
without Mike?
I have no clue.
It's 1.5 plus the grant, or it's? It was 1.5. Total. And how much was that again? So 400,000.
But last I heard, we lost the grant because we didn't start fast enough, so
No,
I don't know.
No, the council was told that although we missed the time frames, we'd be able to get it back. That's in the record. Finally.
But do we have it back is the question. What's the fact?
We'll deal with that down the road. The other issue is, what is the limit for the debt? We usually get an update from the treasurer saying that your bonding's here, but your limit should be up here and no more. Where should we be at?
We just got that schedule today, and I don't remember the numbers, because literally it just came in as a draft from our bond council, so, but you can have that next week, we'll send it to you.
Yeah, it'd be helpful for the numbers that we just got. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, Bellamy, before you run away. Separately on Valley Arena and the pool, when we talk about these bonds, how many years are those amortized over? Are they the same amount for both of them or different amounts?
I was estimating 15 years.
And I take it that's the life expectancy of a pool or a park? That's the reason for that? They couldn't be amortized over 20 or 25 years?
Usually the bond council wants us to use reasonable life expectancies.
Okay. And, I mean, that's what they've come up with, 15 years? All right, that's it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah,
Councilor McGee.
I'll just remind people that we did receive a big bond package way back when for about $25 million with a laundry list of stuff, some of which is here, and some of the things were pulled from it in order to approve it, and then ultimately that $25 million bond went by the wayside because we were picking and choosing at the time. One being Pool, because then we got the grant for it. The real issue is, at the time, it was 25 million is okay. Now, some of these little ones coming up may be an issue. If it wasn't an issue way back when, why is it an issue now? So I'd like that answered. For me, we can say no to bonds that get spread out over a period of time. As the chief and I know, and I've explained to you guys before, we can say no to this. Gonna still need the trucks next year and the year after. And the costs for those keep going up, just like sidewalks on Northampton Street, which Joe and I keep battering for each and every year, and yet don't have them. Then we get an update on the cost for the sidewalks throughout Northampton Street. Keeps going up. Either address the problem now, or don't do anything. Ultimately, when it comes due, costs will be more significant. So I'm just reminding us of a history lesson, which is 25 million, long list of bond, all issues. We didn't do that one. It was okay back then. Now this one's not. Or should raise concerns.
Counselor, if I may add to that,
Chief?
prime example of that is our 2000 ladder truck was $604,000 when we purchased it in the year 2000. So now you're looking at $1 million. So the price just keeps going up. Cost of steel, commodities, production, labor. So
Is there any further discussion?
The only issue I'd have, Joe, not so much a discussion, it would be procedure. It's $2.5 million. We now know it could be dropped to 1.6. However, you could add in the quint, but the real issue there is the language is kind of specific from what I'm reading, which talks about,
Yeah,
my
two
glasses
trucks,
again.
two ladders.
It describes the aerial ladder trucks. It doesn't add in the quint language. Could that be amended in the bond, or do we just go to the 1.6? So I guess procedurally, we could recommend this out without a recommendation. Understand that there might be different bonds coming in to act on. This could be voted down to then act on another one. Or we just amend the language and bring back the 2.5 and add in the quint, if your numbers come back from the, so I'm just trying to see what would be the preference of the committee. Because you approve this, it's just for aerial ladder trucks.
Is it, Bellamy, would it be possible, necessary to get the language change and available for next Wednesday?
Sure, I can do that tomorrow morning. I just have to get it in by noon tomorrow, and I can do that tomorrow morning. It's the same language, we just
Yep.
either change the numbers or put in the word quint. It's very easy to do.
And Chief, is it possible to find out if we're gonna get a deal on, if we add the quint now, or if we wait 2 to 3 years?
I can contact the vendor in the morning and hope to get an answer by noon for you.
Well, if we put in 2.5 million, for example, or whatever, and that's approved, if you get a deal and it comes in less, you're okay, right? It's only a problem if the deal doesn't fall through.
Only
And you'll
prob-
know by next week when the council meets.
Correct, but I mean, it may be 2.6, I don't know. I would have to get the price.
Yeah, because we have noon tomorrow because of the city clerk.
Weekend.
You can tell them it's just 2.5, they don't have a choice. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
what I'm gonna tell him. You gotta do it.
Take it or leave it. Oh, if it's 2.4, he may take the 2.5.
Tell them it's 2.3.
I wish it was that easy.
I think Councilor McGee's point is good. I like the idea of getting something cheaper now than 2 and 3 years. When we know we need it, we're going to pay more for it. With all respect to Bellamy's point, I think we have to go forward and get the best deal we can for the city and take advantage of the grant, making sure we don't lose it. Is this too aggressive to do for next week, I guess is the question. You know, we can't do it next week. We have a meeting 2 weeks from next Wednesday.
I'd like to get it done tomorrow,
I understand.
because the sooner the better we can get the production going.
It's still a year before we get the vehicles in, or at least get the ladders in.
Correct.
So, make a motion to refer to the council without a recommendation? Actually, no, make a motion to approve it, and if it comes out, we'll just vote it down and get the other two options.
Other options, yeah.
So make a motion to approve it, because it is a bond, it can be voted up or down.
Okay, make a motion to approve to the city council that we adopt what's before us with the option of receiving an amended version next week, without getting too wordy. And then we can explain to the council if everything works out, and if not, we can have the options of tabling or even putting it back in committee.
Right. Just a
Councilor Dahlman.
point of information. So basically, we're looking at sort of three options. This with the two trucks, the 2.5 with the Quint, and then the 1.6. Because that's got to be one there too, right? With the two trucks, if you don't get the Quint, it'd be 1.6 million. So that's almost like three options.
Yes.
I mean, the wording, I'm just talking for Bellamy, you know. Yeah, oh, sounds good.
And I promise you, I will talk to the chief financial officer about your point. And we can have some discussion, maybe even bring him in for some discussion about what the upcoming years are going. But if we can get that answer too on Councilor McGee's question, I think that'll make the city council feel more comfortable next week where we are. Or I can call Sandy too, but where we are with the, what'd you call it, Todd, the
Limit?
It's
Bond
kind
limit?
of like a levy limit for
Yeah.
bonding.
Bonding, yeah.
bond levy limit? Any other discussion? Chief?
If I may, it goes along with the grant. Congressman Neal's office contacted me today. He's going to stop by tomorrow to make an official announcement of the grant. It'll be at 3 o'clock at Holyoke Fire Department headquarters on the apparatus floor. So city councilors are all welcome. If you can stop in, please do. It should be brief.
Good congressman. And to remind him, he married a girl from Holyoke.
So thank you so much for hearing me
You gotta
tonight.
get the vote first. On the motion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Okay, Chief, now you can thank us.
Thank you so much for hearing me tonight. I appreciate it, and thank you for your support on this. Have a great evening. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have to come up with Joe for the lights, but thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Yep. Item number 6, introduced myself, is the order that the sum of $420,000 to appropriate to pay the cost and design for the construction of traffic signals at Westfield Road and Appermont Highway and the payment of all costs incidental and related hereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount in pursuant to Chapter 44, Section 7-1, the general laws, to pursuant to any other enabling authority to issue bonds, notes of the city, therefore, that the mayor is authorized to contract and expend state aid available for the project, and that the mayor is authorized to take any action necessary to carry out the project. Motion received, take off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Gentlemen, thank you. Who wants to be the lead? Okay, for the record, I want to do this all the time. We know everybody, but can you just put your name in for the record and who you're representing? Joe?
Bob Parent, City Engineer.
Mike McManus, DPW Superintendent.
Thank you.
So I'll
Mike,
start.
Paul, Joe. Whoever wants to go first.
So this bond request is for the design, bidding, and construction of a new traffic signal at the Westfield Road and Appermont Highway intersection. There was a study that was performed several years ago that showed that this signal is warranted due to traffic conditions and safety. Since that time, we just didn't have the money to go forward and construct it. So we're putting forward this bond request to have the money to do the work.
Is there any in-house funds, Mike, that are going to be used? Any?
No, the plan would, other than Bob's and my time and managing the project, there is no intent to use DPW forces to construct any of this work.
And can you highlight the safety changes? I know we had a lot of discussion, but I don't think it's in this amount about connecting the lights, our new lights now at up 202 at Appermont at the reservoir, and the other lights closer towards Lower Westfield Road.
These lights would be independent of those lights.
Would still, okay.
So this is just a standalone light.
Okay.
It would have a sensor so that once someone came from Appermont Highway to Westfield Road, it would trip the light to turn the signal. And then as far as the accidents that have occurred, I don't have that information with me on hand.
Okay. And Mr. Parent, welcome. You and I have not met yet, but it's a pleasure to meet you formally. And Mike says a lot of good things about you, and that's always a good thing to know, right? Joe, Paul, you want to add anything? You get to take care of these things.
No, it's new technology, which is good. It should last about 15 to 20 years. That's why we're getting all the traffic cabinets right now, with new technology. So it'll be there for a long time, which will be good, and be less expense.
Any other discussion? Good Ward 5 counselor?
I would encourage the committee to recommend this project 5 years later.
Thank you.
We have to persevere, yes.
We're joking around, but we've had many discussions about this intersection, going back to your predecessor, I believe.
Probably.
And we had a lot of good discussions and understanding of what's going on, and we know the design phase is important, but we also know the corrections need to be done. Is there any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion and second to approve. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. We'll recommend to the full city council next Wednesday with, Mike, you know how it goes, but I think we'll get a favorable approval from the council. We also have item number 7, which is introduced for a sum of $1.4 million appropriated to cost for the replacements for the traffic signals. And these are several traffic signals, which I want to read quickly. Northampton and Hamden Street, Northampton and Sargent Street, Northampton and Dwight Street, Linden Suffolk Street, Linden and Beach Street, Linden and Hamden Street, Pleasant and Hamden Street, Pleasant and Lincoln Street, Pleasant and Dwight Street, and Appleton Street, Cabot Street, and South Canal, Homestead, and Cherry. This is also under Chapter 44, that we would allow the mayor, the treasurer, to borrow these monies and use any other state aid or any other available fundings that would be to complete and to execute and complete the project. Chair, entertain a motion to take off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mike, wanna?
This list of intersections comes from that top 10 list that we've had for for a long time now. It's expanded to a top 11 list. The city has almost about 70 traffic signals. And then there's more if you count the flashing yellow and flashing reds that are within the city. So here's 11 signals that we're asking funds for to replace just the equipment. What this would be is the lights and the control cabinets. It would be new wiring for the signals. There's a couple of mast arms at a few of the intersections, but not all of the intersections would have new mast arms. There wouldn't be any modifications to the geometry of the intersections. This is purely an equipment replacement and updating project. We would have to go out and procure the equipment and electrician services, but some of the work would be performed in-house with DPW staff. Some of the demolition, concrete pads if needed, modifications to existing sidewalks and curbs, conduit and trenching, and then repair the asphalt, cutting in loops, any painting that gets disturbed through construction. So Joe's worked with 2 different vendors that he works with when our signals go down to develop a base cost for the equipment and electrical and other miscellaneous installation. And then we've taken a look at what it would take on our end for equipment and materials at DPW. Our time is kind of already paid for with the budgeted salaries. We also included time for traffic detail at these intersections. So we think it's a way of economically upgrading these 11 signals. Instead of going out and hiring a contractor to do it, we can have a hodgepodge and still have a new technology, which will greatly help Joe and also the serviceability of these intersections.
What is our current status, I guess, of Chapter 90 monies? Is there such a dollar anymore coming from the state?
Yeah, every year we get a little bit more than $1 million in Chapter 90 money.
I know you have more than $1 million every year of projects that you could use it for, but...
We do. There's, the typical road resurfacing, the crack sealing. We can use Chapter 90 money for construction of sidewalks outside of the CDBG area. As you know, the sidewalks that we've done for the last few years have been in CDBG areas, except for Taylor Street. Last year, we did some sidewalks on Taylor Street using Chapter 90 money. We also use it for design services for the various TIP projects that we have. The design is in the several $100,000, and we use Chapter 90 to fund those designs. And then there's the upcoming Dwight Front and Heritage Street projects, where there's a portion of that work is non-participatory by the state, so the city has to provide funds. We do have a MassWorks grant, and the intent is to use Chapter 90 to fund the rest of the city's portion of that work.
That would be Heritage, Dwight, and Front.
Heritage, Dwight, and Front.
We've got to do Heritage. It is the most talked about thing in Holyoke District Court on a daily basis. Besides a couple other things that go on in terms of business. Is there any other discussion? Any questions? Councilor McGee.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for bringing this. I've been beating this drum for quite some time, and I was going to keep filing the orders to make you come in. So I'm glad to actually see the bond for this, and I'm glad you added on an 11th one. With what we're receiving to fix all these intersections, time frame, estimate as to when it's all going to get done, and then 2, of everything that we're purchasing, can some of that be used for the other light systems? I know you're always saying, Joe, that you steal from one light to fix another, and you're kind of running out of those options simply because of things were getting too old.
Yes and no. A lot of the stuff we're not able to do due to the age of it. There's some cracks in the profile posts that the lights sit on, the gauges, some of the controllers. When I talk about controllers, I'm not talking about the box itself. I'm talking about the computer that runs the controller, or the intersection. Three or four of them that we have new. They say, should break or one break, probably use it there. Don't forget, we got the 15 intersections, one, so I have all in the right now.
And what's the estimated time frame for getting these lights up and running?
I talked to the supplier today, 6 to 8 weeks. So the faster we get the order controller, the faster we get it done. I would have to say
Months?
it's a good time frame. The first three would probably be, and then with no bad indication of those three. Those are the first three.
And does this bond, I know it says traffic lights, does it encompass the crossing? The,
Pedestrian improvements.
because the one on Northampton and Dwight
Dwight, yeah.
hasn't been working in God knows how long.
At least 2 years. We try to get a control for that intersection. They would not warranty that control. It's underground wiring that.
Yeah, I remember, Joe, you told us about that. I think it was on a side conversation, but I think people really need to know it, either at home who's watching or this group. You could have gotten something to fix the crosswalks, but there was no guarantee it would last only a couple months because of the wiring. Is that being addressed in this bond, the wiring and everything else? Can you explain what was happening there?
The wiring and ground was shorting out, which was short, part of the cabinet. Okay, which watching demo logs were affected at that point. So, they weren't working. Very lucky with nothing else. Where, this will fix that problem.
Okay.
We watch it, we don't watch. I know you have to come for the fire estimate.
Okay. And my last one would be, I know Councilor Valentin and I have been looking for, orders were approved for solar crosswalk signals. One up on Hamden across by the Stop and Shop, and then another one on Lincoln Street by the hair salon place. Where is the status at? Is that incorporated in here? Is it not? Is
Then that's not incorporated in this. The solar crosswalk signal by Stop and Shop is in the Complete Streets program. So Complete Streets is another source of funding that the city can tap into. We were approved for almost $400,000 worth of work this fiscal year. One of the projects in that was the rapid flashing beacon on Hamden Street.
just on Hamden?
Just on, well, it was on, there's one on Hamden, there's another on Linden and High, another on Main Street near Susie Park, and two on for is it Rowan Park on West Franklin and Sargent.
Okay, those are also, okay. So the committee, I've been battling to get these lights done throughout the city for quite some time. So I'm in full support of this simply because if you're driving through some of these areas, especially in the morning, it's a blinking red light. And coming Hamden up towards the highway across Northampton Street, it's just an accident waiting to happen. And especially coming down Dwight Street across Northampton Street, I've walked across that street with the kids a couple times, and it's been a near miss of catching us. So it's overdue. Safety is a main concern here, and we need to get it done as soon as possible.
Any other discussion? I just would echo Councilor McGee's words. I know he is championing this cause as much as any and many city councilors have over the years. And Joe, you and your crew are incredible what you do, and DPW, and we appreciate the efforts, because public safety, I think, is always got to be put in the forefront when it comes to the work that we do. And I think with aerial trucks for the fire department, this certainly ranks up there as a public safety issue. Probably going to mean, Bell, we're going to have to talk to the mayor about that bond limit cap, though, right?
And higher and higher.
I'm being serious. I'm not kidding. It's a good point you made. Any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
Motion made
Second.
second to approve and recommend to the city council to do that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Gentlemen, thank you. We're going into, I believe, the police department would be item number 8 first. In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53.8, the city hereby accepts the provisions of the MEMA Homeland Security Grant and authorizes the establishment of a fund and/or method appropriate for the counting of the receipts, expenditures, and all resources associated with said grant. John Hart, Sergeant, is with us this evening. We appreciate that. Could you walk us through a motion to take off the table for discussion?
So moved.
All those in favor? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. I just want to make one correction. Chief Pond, he had mentioned that free training for the tractor trailer. That's a United Tractor Trailer, not New England Tractor Trailer. That's up behind the mall now.
United Tractor?
United,
Okay,
right.
thank you.
Okay, so the first one on the table, it's the MEMA. I'm not sure the amount on that, if you guys have the amount. That may be an auxiliary police grant. It is not one for the Holyoke Police Department.
I've got, what we have is an attached contract,
Yeah, there should be something to the
Which-
right, Joe, maybe a dollar amount.
and anybody got better eyes than me?
I can look at it, or maybe down below.
No, that's a fax number. That'd be a nice number, though. Yeah, I'm looking at a fax number thinking that's the amount.
If it's not on the right, then it may be on the bottom. Near the bottom.
5,000.
Yeah, 5,000. Then that would be the auxiliary grant. And basically what that grant is for them, after talking to them about that, it's kind of like for their internal infrastructure for computers and also for training for the auxiliary police department.
Okay, and I know for a fact that they go through a lot of in-house training, and their numbers have increased of more recent years, and their presence, I think, has increased in a lot of events throughout the city. And training, there's never enough training for people in any of our positions, but the auxiliary police take it serious. A former colleague of mine actually does some of the I call it different, but the safety training methods for protecting oneself. But I know they do a lot. She doesn't get paid to do it. She volunteers to do it. So the amount is $5,000,
Yeah, I don't see a city
and we
map.
don't see any city match.
Nope.
Is there any questions or any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to accept the MEMA Homeland Security Grant.
Motion made second to accept, and we recommend to the full city council that they do the same. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Next item is item number 9. This is an order with Mass General Law, Section 4453.8. The city hereby accepts the provisions of the 209-911 training grant and authorizes the establishment of fund, method, or appropriate for the accounting receipts, expenditures of all resources associated with an administration of said grant. Take off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, so this grant is for $18,927. there's no match with this grant. And what this grant is for our dispatchers' training. It pays for all their training that they do throughout the year. And as you know, they're mandated to have a minimum of 16 hours each per year. And we've included, as you saw in our this year's budget, we have 4 new part-time dispatchers as well, so.
Do the part-time also have to go through the 16 hours?
Yes, they do.
Any discussion?
Just got a
Counselor Tallman?
quick question. Thanks, Sergeant Hart. How many total dispatchers do we have right now?
We have 12 full-time and 4
Or
part-time.
part-time? And the part-time, is that recent? Have you had part-time before, or just the new people that?
No, we just started it. I'm not sure if you guys know or the residents know, but we've adopted the phase 1 of 911 calling. So now all your 911 calls from the city of Holyoke will go directly
Here.
to our dispatch, where in the past it went to state police. So the majority of our calls now for 911 go right to our
Right
dispatch.
to, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Make a motion to accept the 2019 911 support
Motion
grant.
made second to accept the grant and everything that comes with it to allow for the setup of a procedure to expend the grant and administrate it, and recommend that to the full city council next Wednesday. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. John, is that it?
No, there should be one more, a support incentive
I'm
grant.
skipping over it, sorry. Item 10, introduced by myself, that in accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, the City Council accepts
Support 2019.
it's a 2009 911 support grant and authorizes the establishment of fund and or other method appropriate for the accounting of the receipts and expenditures of resources associated with the administration of said grant. Take off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. John?
Okay, so this part covers everything else besides the training for our 911 department. Anything to do with inside the 911 control room, to include the dispatcher's salary, their overtime, any equipment needed in there, duct work, anything that has to do other than training, this grant covers. It increased $25,000 from the previous couple of years due to the increase in call volume now that we have due to the 911 first phase coming in to our dispatchers now.
What's the total?
Yeah.
What's the total for the grant?
$175,400.
Any other discussion? Councilor Thomas?
There's no match with this?
No match.
And you said it was an increase from last couple years or last year?
Yes,
Well, how much, 25?
25,000.
John, does any salaries come out of this?
Yeah, some dispatcher salaries, and it helps offset the cost for all of our dispatchers, to include the part-time dispatchers as well, which this year, I believe, we're budgeted at $20,000 for the year. So this would definitely help out those part-time dispatchers.
Councilor McGee?
So it's for overtime salaries and equipment. In the budget, we funded for 12 full-time dispatchers and for 4 part-timers, which you said was $20,000, so part-timers. What equipment are you gonna buy?
We don't have anything set this year, just because we just went through a next-gen E911 upgrade that the state paid for a lot of the new equipment. So a lot of this is going to help with the salaries and the overtime.
Well, we already put that in the budget for salary and overtime.
Not the overtime.
No, the budget that was given to us that we voted on included overtime. It's in there. So my question is, if I'm getting $175,400 for covering salaries in overtime that was already in the budget, which we were told by the chief at the time, that that's what they're asking for. He did point out that the only shortfall that he had in the budget was he requested for, I think it was 8 people retiring, and he needed, I'm making up a number now, 800,000 to cover 8 retirees, of which he only got 600 or 500, and he had a shortfall of 300,000 for retirees. That's what he pointed out to us in the budget process.
Well, if we go through and look at the budget, what the chief requested for overtime was 600,000. That got reduced by the mayor to 300,000, and then got reduced again, or no, and then was maintained at 300,000 for this year. Last year, we received 450,000.
Well, that's my point. That's overtime for everybody, not just dispatchers.
Right.
So when we asked the chief 300,000, that's what the mayor gave you. We were told that's okay. That's what we have. If this grant's coming in, it shouldn't be applied towards overtime for everyone. It should go to equipment, because it's covering equipment, overtime, and salary. Overtime and salary, we discussed in the budget. Shouldn't go there. We already funded that. So I want to know, what equipment are we abiding or we're using for $175,400?
That money has been used like in the past to help offset the costs. It's money that the state gives us to help us out with our budget for the 911 dispatchers.
Which then we take, which has been the going theme here the last couple of years, and this is where I'm getting, as I keep explaining it. We accept a grant for this, then we shouldn't put in the budget X amount of dollars for 12 employees. We should leave it at 0, saying that a grant's going to come in and fund those positions. We know realistically we can't do that, because if the grant doesn't come in, we can't fund those positions.
Exactly.
But now that the grants come in and we have the money already allocated for those positions, then the grant should go back towards free cash to fund other projects, not overtime.
So basically, to send it back to free cash, so when we come back and ask for that money back,
Free cash has
it's
been...
kind of redundant. Last year, we spent approximately $1 million in overtime. We're budgeted this year for 300,000. We asked for 600,000. The chief was not okay with 300,000, I can tell you that.
I sat there, others sat around, and I said, you were cut. I can tell you who asked that question, I'm not going to point it out. And he said, it is what it is, that's what we have, we're okay. Now, we're coming back saying, well, we're just going to take from this grant, apply it to overtime. So although we were cut from 600,000 to 300,000, we're just going to backfill it with this grant, which really goes, and this is my whole thing, if it just said for overtime and salaries, I'd say, okay, you win the argument, take the money, apply it to overtime. It goes to equipment as well. And this is the same dance I had with the chief a few years ago, and then last year I said, what equipment? I'm not getting any equipment. And then finally he came back and said, I'll buy some radios. And then last year he said, I'm going to buy some chairs and this and that. This year I'm not buying any equipment at all, it's all going to overtime. Then why file for a grant for overtime salaries and equipment when we should just call it, it's just for overtime? This is a grant for overtime.
Because it's not, because this year we happen to have all new equipment that got upgraded through this next gen 911.
So when budget time comes around, and I make a motion to cut $175,000, actually I'll be generous, I know we went up $25,000 this year, but I'm going to cut in the budget $150,000 to take from 12 full-time dispatchers and 4 part-time, because this grant's going to pay for it. I don't need to put it in the budget. This grant's going to pay for it. And I'm going to take into consideration that we might not get the bump up next year. We're all set with that, right? Because in reality, we're not really funding the positions in salary. They're already funded in the budget. You're now taking this grant to pay for overtime. That's what we're doing. Overtime is not a right. I keep saying that to people. If you have the money for overtime, you allocate it out and you fill the position and you do it. If you don't have it, you can't spend it. And if there's 175,000 coming back in that we could use for other things, and we all know there's a ton of other things in the city that we should be doing, that's where the money should go. To me, I'm gonna file an order. I want the 175,000 not going to overtime. I want it somewhere else. I want it in free cash.
Well, that's not part of the, of the amount here in, for the grant.
Then I'll take it from the salaries. I'm done.
John, I think what would be useful or helpful with these discussions, which are important, because this isn't just about the police department and about the chief and yourself, but with the bigger departments, this happens a lot, where we do a budget in June, and we don't know what grants are coming, we don't know what grants, that may not be coming, and we have to do a 12-month budget, and then grants come in, and with good intentions to use to complement or to offset the budget. In the past, these grants would be used, they would replace something that was in the budget, and that money would be transferred somewhere else, and the game, it went to overtime. And we need a better handle on it, because we are at that position where, you heard the auditor this evening, we're looking at bonding and doing some important things, but that adds to the burden on the budget.
Right, so
And
if
is it
you-
possible, just let me finish my
Yeah,
just
okay,
thought, because
sorry.
this might help. Is it possible that when grants of this nature, this size come in, that we would have a budget just for the grant, a line item budget of where it's gonna go? X to overtime, X to salaries, and an idea now, because you can't just transfer the monies out of the line item, what would be coming back either at the end of the year for free cash, or possible to be transferred someone else with city council approval during the year. That's all I wanted to say.
Right, so, if you're talking about the budget, the whole police department budget, this is $175,000 that the state is giving us for our budget. Without that, if you cut that from our budget, hoping to get that back, we're just gonna have to come back and ask and get money out of free cash. You won't have that 175 from the state now. So we'll have to come back and ask for that money. Our overtime's at 300,000. For the past 5 years, 5-year average was over 700,000 for overtime. We're budgeted for 300,000. Where do you think we get the other money from? Well, I'll tell you, 175,000 or 150 in the past, the state helped us out. Now, if we don't have that any longer, we're gonna be coming back here and taking it from the city, or asking from
Requesting
the
it.
city. Right.
And with all due
Sorry.
respect, if we
Right.
had it, you'd probably get it.
And requesting it.
It's coming to a point where it's not there. So the
Exactly.
efforts have got to be to reduce certain costs
And then
along with the
And then
need.
you look at, last year, we didn't get approved for this grant till January. So we were really cutting it close to even try and get, because you can't submit, it's a reimbursable grant. So I couldn't start in January and say, all right, I want to reimburse costs from July to now. I could only do it starting when the grant got approved, which was in January. So it really cut close. We almost lost a big portion of that money just because of the timing.
There was a day when, not that long ago, when state aid was known before the fiscal year started and the city planned accordingly with all departments, not just education. And we found out in the way we should find out, because it's not the state giving us money, it's the state giving us our money back.
Right.
And we are the poorest community in the Commonwealth. The obligation of taxpayers to offset what we do in terms of the liabilities or the burdens of poverty on our budget is what should come from everybody in this state that live in bedroom communities. So when this money comes in, we want to make sure we use it right, because it's there for a purpose, it should be there, and we shouldn't wait until January to know how the state's going to let us have our portion of our tax dollars back. If the state doesn't like that, we can become our own state and live off of the Holyoke Mall sales tax. And they won't like that either because they need that money. I'm not lecturing you, Jen, I'm just having that, a little
I
fun.
agree.
Any other discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2019 9/11 support grant.
Second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Item number 11 is introduced by Councilor Bacon, that the City Council receive an update on the Essex demolition lawsuit. Also, that the City Council update regarding the status of the bond payment with $10,000 wired in error to the Gmail account of the treasurer. Is the bond written in the manner that it will cover the payment to restore the funds? Motion to take off the table for discussion?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Councilor Bacon,
So,
to our administrative assistant.
I just received a forward this evening of a communication from the law department at 6:47 tonight. However, the communication from the law department is not responsive to my order. They're referring to the debit card order, which is a separate matter. I realize the cards have been locked in the law office. I did file a separate order, but on the agenda tonight was just the two that you have read, and they have not responded on point to those. So I guess I would ask the committee to table till we do get.
Yeah, I think that in accordance, I'll just add to your comments, is I did receive a quick phone call from Paul Pear, from our city solicitor, and I do remember what he was talking about. I didn't catch the fact that he wasn't coming this evening, or somebody wasn't coming to represent the law department, but if you're done, we'll recognize the auditor just for a minute, or for as long as you want, Bellamy.
Sure.
This will be brief because I can respond to the second half of the order, which has to do with the $9,997 that was spoofed from the treasurer last fall. When last we met, we established that the New York Police Department had apprehended the crook who stole the money.
Correct.
The New York State courts had convicted the criminal, and he had not been sentenced. Since then, he has been sentenced. That sentence includes providing full restitution to the city, plus $503 of kind of interest, and he was supposed to pay the first payment on August 19th, which he did. We received a $160 payment, whatever it was last week or the week before. So we are getting restitution from the miscreant. No, the criminal. You're not a miscreant. He's a criminal. And that's all I have to report.
Well, he must have a very good probation officer working on our behalf. Because to
guess.
get that first payment that quick is a good news.
Yeah, it
Because
is.
usually that means it'll come monthly.
The court's terms are very simple. You don't pay, you get put in jail. So,
I understand.
pretty big hammer to me.
Well, I hate to tell you how often that doesn't work, but that's okay. I'm going to find out who the PO is and give him a call.
That's a
Councilor
great
Bacon.
update. Thank
Okay.
you.
So that's half of the order.
The other one is,
And the other, I don't know if it needs to be an executive session or not,
I think that's why
because
Paul called.
it was a lawsuit filed, and I was just interested to know what's happening with it. Was it filed against the demo company?
Yeah.
What I said to him was that should be executive session.
Yeah.
But I would leave it up to I'd rather leave it up to our president to do it with the full city council if you think that's appropriate. And,
Yeah.
you know,
I defer to the
and we haven't
committee.
we haven't had an executive session with the law department we should do it every 6 months.
Yeah.
My only thought. Counselor Sullivan.
I just want to go on record, I've talked with the law department about this several times also. And I don't feel there's any reason for executive session. I think this should be brought out for the public in a full council session. This is not against it's filed against the demolition company. It's against their insurance company. It's up to the insurance company to pay out on these, all right? They were required to have, I believe, $5 million in insurance when they took on this project. It's against the insurance company. This is a typical tactic of the insurance companies to drag these things out as long as they can. I've suggested we file a 93A, commonly known as the guerrilla tactic that they're using, just trying to wear us down and seek triple damages. And there's no reason for any of this to go on in executive session.
Okay.
Linda, if you want it open, we can.
I'll defer to the committee. I just wanted to know what was going on with it because we have a habit of getting excited about things, filing orders, getting things passed, and then a year goes by and we're like, whatever happened to that? And so it was one of those.
Okay.
To just get updated on.
Make
Sure, there's.
Make a motion to table it and invite him back in to
Yeah.
get an update.
Second that.
On the motion to table, there's no discussion. All those in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. Counselor Bartley, item number 12, introduced by Counselor Bartley. The mayor acknowledge, please provide detailed explanation of how the city employee personally paid for IT services prior to the close of fiscal 2018. Motion received, take off the table for discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. David did call me today. He had a conflict tonight. He did believe there was going to be a communication through Bellamy. Okay. Bellamy, would you like to address this?
Yes, is it on? Yeah.
Yes.
You will recall, because you were involved with processing transfers, that the IT budget ran out of money because they had to spend a part of their budget on telephones because the City Hall telephone system broke all of a sudden one time last fall. Comes the month of June, the IT budget is out of money. They get a bill from a company called Liquid Web, which hosts the city website. The bill didn't get paid, and finally Liquid Web threatened to shut down the website. In fact, the website did go down twice before this employee, who was a consultant, Eileen Pooler, decided that she would pay the $425 bill on her credit card so that the website wouldn't go down. Now, I will point out that the day the website would have gone down was the day of a city council budget meeting, I think the first one. And if that website had gone down, there would have been no budget hearing because we would have not had any public notice. That's our public notice system. But I don't think she should have done it. She didn't ask for any approval to do it. She just went ahead and did it. Shows great loyalty to the city, but that's how it happened. Nothing else I can say.
Did you get paid back?
Pardon me? Liquid, it's a company that hosts our website. You know, there are hosting companies that do that. And probably provides the software that kind of runs the website and sets it up. I really don't know. I'm not an IT expert. But that is the name of the vendor. They host
Never
our...
mind. Counselor Reagan.
And she got reimbursed from the city once we got our new
Yeah,
budget?
I mean, the
Well, I
budget,
personally,
money was transferred in the budget and
she
HG&E
probably
reimbursed
overstepped
her.
a procedure, but given some of the procedural negatives that we've dealt with over the years and the large sums of money that have been spent that we couldn't account for why, I thank her for her good deed.
I do too. Yeah.
Counselor McGee.
Bring her in for a proclamation.
There you go.
Isn't gas and electric supposed to do our website, and Eileen works through gas and electric to do it?
Yeah, but I think the hosting is a different thing.
Different, yeah.
Yeah.
I know from those that run my political website that there's a host of licenses and agreements and vouchers out there that if you don't keep them up to date, they grab your name and hold it hostage. And I'm not even sure. I think mine is with what's the Hotmail or
Yeah, I don't know.
Not Yahoo, or it might be Yahoo, but anyways.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, Counselor McGee, but I do understand that there are vultures out there, if you don't act quick, there are people that will come down and swoop it right, and I wish I could remember the term, swoop the domain right out
yeah,
from under you. And if you lose your domain, you lose not only your name, not only shut down the website, but, you have to get a whole new one up and operating, even if it's identical, under a new domain, under a new name.
Yeah.
So I hate to, that's my IT or that's my social media expertise because I have two wonderful daughters that far better understand it than I do. Anything else?
Make a motion that that order has been complied with?
All those in favor? Any opposed? So moved. This is a fantastic committee.
Make a motion to take up item number 13. Councilor
Set the
McGee?
order, introduced by Councilor McGee, that the order that the city impose the excise tax on Airbnbs. Off the table for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Councilor McGee.
Yeah, I mean, we can table this for now, but just as a quick rehab, the assessor contacted me once this order was filed and informed me since 2016, they've been monitoring the Airbnbs in the city, and they roughly what they can find online is about 10 so far that they know of. So in essence, people are renting out their rooms in their houses to people. And one example that they showed us was one individual in the city of Holyoke had the whole month of August booked. They have actually online, their whole house is booked for the whole month. And I said, well, where's the person living? I'm like, well, they travel, so they won't be here for the summer. So here we have people renting out their houses, which in essence is a hotel, which then the governor passed an order to tax them on the state side, and then that was sent to the House and Senate, of which I thought it was approved, but now from what Paul said and what from Tony said is they haven't approved it just yet, so we're waiting for that final approval. But the governor did say that he was going to tax it. There were certain nuances. If it was less than 14 days in a year, then they wouldn't be taxed and all that stuff. So we're still waiting for the final bill to come out as to what a city can do. So the state is saying they want to tax it, and cities can also tax it, kind of like our hotel tax or meal tax, whatever else. The next step would be going through ordinance, I think, to set up some type of rules
As to
for
what an Airbnb is.
what it is, what they can do, certain limitations in neighborhoods, that type of stuff. That's a different order. That's a different beast to tackle. Right now, I'm just acting upon what the state is offering us to do. So I'll make a motion to table it for now because we're still waiting for final legislation. And Paul said probably in January you'll see it.
And just before we second that, because we can't discuss it, I have had numerous complaints about Airbnbs, and I believe the law department has yet to release an opinion, but regulating them is near, not impossible, but very difficult because homes can be rented. It's just the thought of renting them for a day at a time, a weekend at a time, that I think is what is annoying people and not liking it as a neighbor because it becomes a commercial business more than a residential home.
Joe, on that point, would that be able to achieve a special permit? In essence, if I'm running a business out of my house, normally I can have a phone, a fax line, and that's by right. But if I have packages delivered, I'm having stuff on site, if I have people coming to the house, like a lawyer or a yoga, whatever it is, we've seen all different types, that requires a special permit.
Yes.
Here, would that fall within that arena? I think that's what we need to know for.
It would be
for
even
legal.
nice, not just a special permit, but we recognize part of it as a business and implement the
Business
commercial tax rate.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we cannot implement the commercial tax rate on apartment buildings, so I have a feeling that it's worth a try, but I have a feeling that we may be barking up the wrong tree. But maybe
Need the revenue, Joe.
maybe we can file an order and get an answer. Counselor Bacon.
So related to the question about the tax and waiting on the state coming up with their definitions, it seems that it would be prudent for the Airbnb ordinance to do the same thing. So that once we see what the state does, we might have an opportunity to tweak it and make it somewhat different for Holyoke, but at least then we'd have a baseline. Does that seem like a reasonable path?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a similar process like the marijuana, you know, it's a work in progress.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm just gonna note, waiting for the stakes. I'm going through this, trying to figure out which month and year to take these orders up in.
Sounds good.
Make a motion,
Second to table.
table.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Before we adjourn, I apologize to the committee because I originally said we were gonna do this on Monday, and we just have these competition for Monday nights. Would the committee be okay with Wednesday nights as more of a regular meeting in the in-between Wednesday? Does that make okay for everybody? I don't know, Council Leahy has a conflict or just a conflict tonight? Everybody likes Monday night. DGI already took Monday next month. Thank God ordinance stays with Tuesday, public service, which I hope
Say
it's what we think it
something, yeah.
is coming up. And, Danny kind of moves around a lot.
I'm all right with Wednesdays.
So I penciled in September 12th. It's the in-between Wednesday of September.
Yeah.
And if we make that work, and both our meetings are Wednesdays anyways in September, so I think it's a okay night. But we can, if it doesn't work, let me know.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn? All those in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.